Bullies slapped her in front of 200 students. Her response changed everything. A story by Heartfelt Tales. The sound echoed through the packed assembly hall like a gunshot. 200 students fell silent as Maya's cheek burned red from the slap that had just shattered her world. But what happened next would change everything, not just for Maya, but for every person who had ever felt powerless in that room. Maya Chen had always been the girl who disappeared into the background. At 17, she wore oversized sweaters that swallowed her small frame, kept her dark hair like a curtain across her face, and had perfected the art of becoming invisible. She preferred it that way. Invisibility meant safety. Invisibility meant the three boys who ruled Westfield High with their cruel laughter and vicious words might forget she existed. She should have known better. It was the annual Academic Achievement Assembly, and Maya's name had been called to receive the Mathematics Excellence Award. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she made her way to the stage, acutely aware of the whispers that followed her. "There goes the freak," someone muttered. "Bet she cheated," said another voice that sounded suspiciously like Derek Morrison, the ringleader of her tormentors. Maya had endured Derek and his friends, Brad and Tyler, for 3 years. They had turned her life into a daily nightmare of accidental shoulder checks in the hallway, textbooks knocked from her hands, and cruel nicknames that made her want to disappear entirely. Math freak, China girl, and worse things that made her stomach churn every time she heard them. But she had never expected this. Not here. Not in front of everyone. As Maya walked across the stage to accept her award, Derek suddenly stood up from his seat in the front row. The assembly was supposed to be formal, respectful, but Derek Morrison had never cared about rules. He cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted, "Hey math freak! Still think you're better than everyone else?" The principal looked mortified, but before he could intervene, Derek vaulted onto the stage with the athletic grace that made him the star of the football team. Brad and Tyler followed like loyal dogs, their faces twisted with malicious glee. The entire assembly held its breath. "You think you're so smart," Derek sneered, circling Maya like a predator. She clutched her award certificate so tightly it crumpled in her trembling hands. "You think just because you can solve some stupid equations, you're worth something?" Maya tried to back away, but Tyler blocked her path while Brad grabbed her shoulders. The principal was shouting something, teachers were moving toward the stage, but everything felt like it was happening in slow motion. "Please," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible. "Just leave me alone." Derek's face twisted with rage. "Don't you dare tell me what to do, you worthless." The slap came swift and brutal, Derek's palm connecting with Maya's cheek with enough force to make her stumble. The award fell from her hands, fluttering to the floor like a broken bird. The sound reverberated through the stunned silence of the assembly hall. For a moment, Maya simply stood there, one hand pressed to her burning cheek, tears streaming down her face. She looked out at the sea of faces, some shocked, some sympathetic, but too many wearing expressions of cruel satisfaction. This was entertainment to them. Her pain was their amusement. But then something shifted inside Maya Chen. Maybe it was the memory of her grandmother's voice, telling her stories of their ancestors who had survived wars and persecution with dignity intact. Maybe it was the thought of every night she'd cried herself to sleep, wondering why she deserved such cruelty. Or maybe it was simply that she had finally reached the breaking point that exists inside every human being, the moment when enough becomes enough. Maya slowly lowered her hand from her cheek and looked Derek Morrison directly in the eyes. "You're right," she said, her voice quiet but somehow carrying to every corner of the silent hall. "I do think I'm better than you. But not because I'm smart." Derek's smirk faltered slightly. This wasn't the cowering response he was used to. "I'm better than you because I don't need to hurt other people to feel good about myself," Maya continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I'm better than you because I don't peak in high school and spend the rest of my life reliving my glory days. I'm better than you because I have a future that doesn't depend on making other people feel small. The assembly hall was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Derek's face was turning red, his fists clenched at his sides. "You think you can talk to me like that?" he snarled, raising his hand again. But this time, Maya didn't flinch. Instead, she pulled out her phone and held it up, the screen showing that she had been recording since the moment Derek had grabbed her. "I think I can talk to you however I want," she said calmly. "Because unlike you, I'm not stupid enough to assault someone in front of 200 witnesses and a bunch of cameras." Derek's hand froze mid-air as he suddenly became aware of the phones pointed in their direction, the security cameras mounted on the walls, and the teachers who were now surrounding the stage. His face went pale as the reality of what he had done began to sink in. But Maya wasn't finished. "For 3 years, you've made my life hell," she said, her voice carrying to every person in that room. "You've called me names, knocked me down, and made me feel like I was nothing. And I let you, because I thought if I just stayed quiet and invisible, you'd eventually get bored and leave me alone." She looked out at the assembled students, many of whom were staring at her with expressions of awe and disbelief. But staying quiet doesn't make bullies go away. It just makes them bolder. And I'm done being quiet. Maya turned back to Derek, who was now being flanked by 2 very angry-looking teachers. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to face the consequences of your actions for once in your privileged life. And I'm going to make sure that every college you've applied to, every scholarship committee, and every person who needs to know about your character sees exactly who you really are." The principal had finally reached the stage, his face thunderous with rage. "Derek Morrison, Brad Stevens, Tyler Walsh, my office, now." But Maya held up a hand. "Actually, I think we should handle this right here, in front of everyone. After all, they humiliated me publicly. Shouldn't their consequences be just as public?" She looked out at the assembly again, her voice carrying with a strength that surprised even her. "How many of you have been bullied by these 3? How many of you have stayed silent because you were afraid?" Slowly, tentatively, hands began to rise throughout the audience. First a few, then dozens, then what looked like half the student body. Maya felt tears prick her eyes, but this time they weren't tears of shame or pain, they were tears of solidarity. "This ends today," she declared. "Not just for me, but for all of us." The aftermath was swift and decisive. The video Maya had recorded, along with footage from the assembly, went viral within hours. Derek Morrison's full-ride football scholarship to State University was revoked. College acceptance letters were withdrawn. The 3 boys faced suspension and were required to attend counseling and anger management classes. But the real change was deeper than just punishment. Maya's moment of courage had sparked something in the school that had been dormant for too long. Students began speaking up about their experiences with bullying. Teachers and administrators were forced to confront the toxic culture they had allowed to fester. Support groups were formed. Policies were changed. Maya herself was transformed. The girl who had once hidden behind her hair and oversized sweaters began to walk with her head held high. She started a peer counseling program for students dealing with bullying. She spoke at assemblies and conferences about the importance of standing up not just for yourself, but for others who couldn't find their voice yet. The scar on her cheek from Derek's slap faded within weeks, but the strength she had discovered that day never did. 6 months later, Maya stood at the same podium where she had been humiliated, but this time she was there by choice. She was giving the keynote address at a regional conference on bullying prevention, and the assembly hall was packed with students, teachers, and parents from dozens of schools. "I used to think that courage meant being fearless," she told the audience. "But I learned that real courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting in spite of fear. It's standing up when everything inside you wants to shrink down. It's finding your voice when the world tries to silence you." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces, some young, some old, but all listening intently. "That day when Derek Morrison slapped me was the worst day of my life. But it was also the day I discovered who I really was. Not the victim he tried to make me, but a survivor with the power to change things. Maya smiled, remembering the terrified girl who had once stood on this same stage. They thought they could break me with that slap. Instead, they woke something up inside me that had been sleeping for too long. They gave me the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. They showed me my own strength. The applause was thunderous, but Maya barely heard it. She was thinking about all the kids out there who were still suffering in silence, still believing that they were powerless, still waiting for someone to save them. "You don't have to wait for someone else to save you," she said as the applause died down. "Sometimes, the hero you're looking for is the person staring back at you in the mirror. Sometimes, the biggest mistake your bullies can make is underestimating just how strong you really are." As Maya walked off the stage to another standing ovation, she realized that Derek Morrison had been right about one thing: that slap really had been the biggest mistake he'd ever made. Not because of the consequences he faced, but because it had unleashed something in Maya that could never be put back in the box. The quiet girl was gone forever. In her place stood a young woman who knew her worth, understood her power, and would never again let anyone make her feel small. And that transformation, that was worth more than any award she could ever receive. Thank you for watching this story from Heartfelt Tales. Maya's journey reminds us that our greatest struggles often become our greatest strengths. Have you ever found unexpected courage in a difficult moment? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else who needs to hear it. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need this message. Don't forget to subscribe to Heartfelt Tales for more inspiring stories that celebrate the resilience of the human spirit. Together, we can create a community where every voice matters and every story has the power to heal. Remember, you are stronger than you know, braver than you feel, and more worthy than anyone has ever made you believe.